Time now for a closer look at some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have State Representative Rosemary Lesser and former Utah GOP Chair Thomas Wright. Great to have both of you on the show. Thanks so much for being here. Let's start off with affordable housing, a big topic during the week. First off, I'd like to hear your assessment of the current state of affordable housing here in Utah. Representative, let's start with you.
Well, it's the $55 million that was allocated in the last legislative session was less than the governor had requested in his initial budget. On the other hand, it's a start, and it's certainly something that needs to be addressed in our state. I'm excited to see areas throughout our state working together, Salt Lake County, Mill Creek, even in my own district in Weber County. And these are important initiatives for our state moving forward.
Talk about, if you will, real quick, about the need you see on the ground in even your own district.
One of the most pressing needs is in the deeply affordable housing market. That has really been a problem, and I'm delighted that Commissioner Niederhauser is so actively involved in this program for decreasing homelessness by actually providing housing. So this is something that affects people throughout our state. And in the affordable housing market, this is something that is critically important and comes up as I'm talking with constituents all throughout my region.
Thomas, let's bring you into the conversation. Your assessment of affordable housing and the state of it in our area right now.
This is one of the state's most pressing problems, Glenn. And I agree with a lot of what the representative said. The challenge, though, is this is a government that's trying to fix problems, and I applaud the compassionate conservatism of those in the legislature. I think this is a step in the right direction in what's a crisis. But the unfortunate reality here is government is not going to be able to solve this problem. We have to get to the core of why we have an affordable housing crisis. I've written a lot of op-eds. There's a lot of people out there that have done the same. And getting to the core root of why our housing is unaffordable is the only way to solve this problem long term. We have a supply and demand issue. We have too high of impact fees at the city level. Those impact fees, when charged to the developers, get passed on to the consumer. And when they get passed on to the consumer, housing becomes unaffordable. So it's great that we're trying to help the people right now that are in the situation that they're in. I applaud that. That's the right thing to do. But let's not make the same mistake we made the last decade by burying our heads in the sand on this issue. Let's get to the root of the problem and have the hard conversations. And that's hard for a lot of elected officials to do because they want to get reelected and they want high approval ratings. This is going to be a really hard conversation, but man, do we ever need to have it in the state of Utah.
The representative mentioned the $55 million that was approved last year. Am I hearing you correctly? Throwing money at the problem isn't going to be the solution?
For whatever reason, Glenn, government can't see around the bend. You know, in the private sector, we see around the bend. We see the problems kind of before they happen. We do our best to anticipate them. Government tends to wait till the problem hits them right in the face, and then they start talking about it. Look at the Great Salt Lake. Look at the affordable housing crisis. We wait till the issue is so big and so large that then the elected officials that ignored it, that helped cause the problem, are now the ones that tell you government's here to fix it. Government is not going to solve these problems. Government helped create them. And I think there's a proper role of government. I applaud our elected officials for serving, but we need to get back to the basics of identifying problems and fixing them where they're being created so that people can start to afford housing again. For example, Glenn, if you have a city that's running a deficit and they don't want to have an honest conversation with their citizens about their deficit and the need for more tax revenue, then what are they going to do? They're going to pass along higher impact fees to developers because that doesn't affect the everyday citizen. And then they don't have to have that honest conversation. So what does that do? That gets passed along to the consumer and housing becomes unaffordable. And until we're willing to have these conversations, we're going to continue to have to throw money at the problem, which in this case is probably the right thing to do because nothing was done over the last 10, 15 years. But let's fix the problem so we don't have to do that. That's the right thing to do.
Representative, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Is government the problem here? And you mentioned the $55 million as a good step, but where do you see it going from here?
Well, I have been impressed by all of the groups who are coming together beyond government in attempting to address this issue. I am excited to see the foundation that Gail Miller has been involved with in basically funding refurbishment of historic homes to allow for affordable housing. I think it's going to involve many organizations, both public and private, coming together, not just a government solution. And I agree with Tom. This is not a solely government solution. In Utah, we don't do sole government solutions to problems. And I am uplifted by all the organizations that are coming together, including the individuals who are coming together in as a result of the House Bill 462, in which a housing commission was formed addressing high-density housing up and down the Wasatch Front and throughout the state. And this is bringing this coalition of people together. I really can't comment on the impact fees and how they have affected housing costs. I think that this is much more complex than just the impact fees, but I'm excited to have organizations like Envision Utah, the Utah Housing Coalition, Utah Preservation Board, all coming together to address this critical problem for the future of Utah.
So Thomas, you scratched on this, but dig into it a little deeper with specific detail. What are the solutions that you see solving this problem?
Well, the representative is absolutely correct. Not one thing is going to solve this problem, right? I use the impact fees as an example of one of the things that's driving up the cost of housing. Certainly not the only thing. And I do agree that we need to get a broad coalition of people together to solve the problem. And there's many municipalities and cities out there that are doing it the right way, and they should be applauded. But unfortunately, we don't really know who those are and who those aren't. Housing is a really challenging thing. It's not just that it's unaffordable, it's we're missing the middle. If we don't have people at the bottom of the ladder that are moving up in housing, freeing up the lower inventory, then we run out of that inventory. And that missing middle, as I call it, is one of the problems with our affordable housing crisis. And that deals a lot with density, right? And the not in my backyard mentality that a lot of people have. And we've all had it from one degree or another, but until we get a little bit higher density, you can still have a single family home with your own backyard, but maybe a little bit higher density. Some of our zoning laws were created in the 50s and 60s when the world was a different place. And we've inherited those zoning ordinances and laws. Do they make sense now? If they don't, let's talk about them. Let's get our citizens together and have a reasonable, candid conversation. No city is the same, and everybody has different needs. I recognize that. I believe in local control. But at the end of the day, if we've inherited all these old zoning ordinances from the 50s and 60s, and they don't work in 2023 or 2022, then we got to have a conversation about it. But we're not having that conversation. Instead, what we're doing is we're asking government to throw money at the problem. And does that need to happen once in a while? Yes. Is that the solution to a problem long term? Absolutely not. Just look at our federal government. If you think it works, look at the states that have tried it. They're bankrupt. Our country's at $33 trillion in debt. It runs a deficit every year. Government is not the solution to these problems. It's the free markets, and it's identifying where the choke points are and then alleviating those choke points so we can have more supply. That will drive the costs down.
Okay, time is moving by really quick. I want to get to one other subject real fast, and that's student loan forgiveness. During the week, we found out that Governor Cox was one of 22 Republican governors sending a letter to the president asking him to rescind his plan. Representative, your thoughts on the governor's move?
Well, it's certainly another one of these complex issues. We know that in our state of Utah, we actually have some of the lowest student debt of any of the states in the country. And so Governor Cox is probably, I suspect, reflecting Utah's embracing sort of the beehive mentality of finding ways to fund education. On the other hand, there are about 108,000 Utahns who would be affected by this program. Now, I am clearly not the president, and if I had been the president, I would have considered perhaps a little bit more of a target. I think 125,000 as the income max for an individual really does extend into higher income groups. And so even though this bill, or this, not bill, but executive action, would primarily affect those under $80,000, I think if I were doing it from scratch, I would have actually limited it to a lower income group, primarily those receiving Pell Grants.
We are running out of time, Thomas, 30 seconds.
Well, look, I mean, it's not student loan forgiveness. It's the transference of somebody else's debt. That's not fair. We all agree in America that picking winners and losers and making somebody pick up the bill for somebody else is not fair. It wasn't, I feel bad about the student debt. I was on the State Board of Regents. I voted against tuition increases repeatedly. I'm always surprised when universities raise tuition, the truth in tuition hearing happens and 3 students show up and ask questions. So please, if you're out there, go to those truth in tuition hearings. Make sure your voice is heard.
All right, unfortunately, we have run out of time. Great conversation. Really appreciate both of you being here today. And stay with us. We'll have more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.